I'm James Cagney, and I'm a writer and a writer. James Francis Cagney Sr., born in 1899, was forged in the crucible of New York's tough Lower East Side. He was a street fighter who, paradoxically, began his career in vaudeville as a dancer, a skill he would brilliantly display in films like Yankee Doodle Dandy. He was a man's man who could project terrifying menace, yet he was also a passionate farmer, a conservationist, a painter, and a poet. He was a man who was famous for his wisdom, famously suing Warner Brothers and winning, a move that gave him unprecedented independence. He was, in short, a man of immense complexity. His wife, Frances Willard Billy Vernon, whom he married in 1922, was his steadfast anchor. Their marriage lasted an incredible 64 years until his death in 1986. Billy was a former chorus girl who dedicated her life to her husband. As described by Cagney's biographer John McCabe, Billy's devotion was absolute. She managed his life, protected his privacy, and created an environment where he could fully immerse himself in his craft. However, this absolute focus on her husband's needs would have profound and lasting consequences for the children they would eventually adopt. After 18 years of marriage, the Cagneys learned that James Sr. was sterile. This deeply personal revelation led them down the path of adoption. In 1939, they adopted their son, James Francis Cagney, Jr. Shortly after, in 1940, they adopted their daughter, Kathleen Frances Cagney, who became known as Casey. The family was now complete. Publicly, photos would occasionally surface showing the happy family unit, like a shot from the set of Come Fill the Cup in 1951 with Cagney Sr. and Billy smiling alongside their two young children. But the reality of their upbringing was far from conventional. They were not raised in the main house with their parents. Instead, at the behest of their mother, Billy, James Jr., and Casey were raised in a separate, smaller house built on the grounds of the expansive Cagney property. The rationale, as detailed by biographer John McCabe, was that it was impractical to have the children live in the house. Because of James Sr.'s intense need for quiet and concentration while he studied his roles. His dedication to his craft was all-consuming. He needed to be letter-perfect in his lines. Billy, in her role as his protector and enabler, saw the children as potential distractions. The separation was not just physical, it was social. The children were reportedly not allowed to have friends over when their father was at home, engrossed in learning a script. This unique and isolating upbringing, where the children were loved but kept at a functional distance, almost certainly sowed the seeds for the estrangement that would define their adult relationships with their parents. Number 2. James Cagney, Jr., born on November 25, 1939, lived a life that was, in almost every respect, a deliberate departure from the world his adoptive father dominated. As an adult, James Jr. settled far from the sun-drenched landscape of Hollywood. He made his home in the historic coastal town of Newport, Rhode Island, a place known for its maritime traditions and Gilded Age history, not its movie studios. This geographical remove was a clear statement, a choice for a different kind of life. His profession was as far from acting as one could imagine. He worked in a shipyard. This was a hands-on, tangible, and distinctly non-theatrical career. The choice of manual labor, of building and repairing, stands in stark contrast to the world of performance and illusion his father mastered. It speaks to a desire for a life grounded in practical skills and a different measure of hard work. While he eschewed a public artistic career, he did have a private passion for the arts. He was known to play a variety of musical instruments, an interest he pursued for his own enjoyment, not for an audience. His life in Newport was one of quiet working-class dignity, a world away from the pressures and expectations that would have relentlessly followed him in Los Angeles. In Newport, James Jr. built a family of his own. He married Anne Miserek, and together they had two children, a daughter, also named Casey Cagney, and a son, Jonathan Cagney. While his own childhood was unconventional, he created a traditional family unit for himself in his chosen home. Tragically, James Cagney Jr.'s life was cut short. On Friday, January 27, 1984, he died of a heart attack in Washington, D.C., where he was visiting. He was only 44 years old. Funeral services were held at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in his home of Newport, Rhode Island. His son, Jonathan Cagney, later pursued a career that, like his father's, was grounded in service, though of a different kind. He became a licensed funeral director, first in Newport and later in South Portland, Maine. This choice, dedicated to helping families through their most difficult moments of grief, is another quiet testament to a life of purpose, far removed from the entertainment industry. The emotional distance of James Jr., whilst his childhood appears to have solidified into a profound and permanent estrangement in adulthood. According to Mars Zimmerman, James Cagney, heir senior, ASS longtime secretary, a major dispute erupted about 2 years before James Jr.'s death. The conflict centered on property that Cagney Sr. had gifted his son on Martha's Vineyard. The elder Cagney had a deep, abiding love for his Martha's Vineyard farm, a sprawling 100-acre property he acquired in 1936. It was his sanctuary, his escape from Hollywood, a place where he could be a farmer and connect with the land. For a dispute over this cherished property to become the breaking point suggests the immense emotional weight attached to it. The specific details of the argument are not public, but it was severe enough to cause an irreparable rift. Such conflicts over land and inheritance often become proxies for years of unspoken grievances and emotional pain. The depth of this estrangement is starkly illustrated by what happened after James Jr.'s death. Reports at the time indicated it was not known whether the actor would attend his son's funeral. In a final, poignant twist of irony, at the very time of his son's death, James Cagney Sr. had just finished filming a CBS movie titled Terrible Joe Moran. The plot of the film revolved around a family reunion. The stark, tragic contrast between the art he was creating and the reality of his life could not have been more painful. Number 1. Kathleen Casey Cagney. Thomas, born on July 30, 1940, in Stockton, California, was the second child adopted by James and Billy Cagney. Known as Casey, she, like her brother, lived a life largely shielded from the public eye. She attended the Marquand School in Sherman Oaks, California, in her youth. In 1962, she married Jack W. Thomas, a screenwriter and author. His credits include films like Lone Texan and Embryo. Significantly, Jack Thomas also assisted his father-in-law, James Cagney, in writing his autobiography, Cagney by Cagney. This collaboration suggests that while Casey may have kept her distance, her husband was integrated into the family's professional and personal life, serving as a trusted partner and preserving the Cagney legacy. Casey and Jack Thomas had 2 daughters, Vernie Lee Thomas and Christina Mae Thomas. They divorced in 1981, but reportedly remained on friendly terms. The nature of Casey's relationship with her adoptive parent seems to mirror the distance experienced by her brother. Marge Zimmerman, Cagney's secretary, noted that Casey also went her own way. While less specific than the details of the Martha's Vineyard dispute, this phrase suggests a similar pattern of estrangement, or, at the very least, a life lived with significant emotional and physical separation from her parents. Given the unconventional upbringing in the separate house, it's likely both children forged lives of independence out of necessity and choice. Kathleen Casey Cagney. Thomas passed away on August 11, 2004, in Agoura, California, at the age of 64, from complications related to cancer. Like her brother, her story is one of a private life lived against the backdrop of immense fame. The profound disconnect between James Cagney Sr. and his adoptive children is powerfully underscored in his own words, or rather, by his silence. His 1976 autobiography, Cagney by Cagney, is a fascinating account of his career, his battles with studios, and his philosophies on acting. However, it is famously and strikingly sparse in its discussion of his personal family life. His wife, Billie, is mentioned, but his children, James Jr. and Casey, are almost entirely absent. While it's reported that Billie requested not to be a major part of the book, the near-total omission of his children from his life's own narrative is a poignant and telling choice. It suggests a man who, for whatever reason, pain, guilt, or simply a desire to control his public legacy, chose to edit out the most complex and perhaps most painful aspect of his personal story. The book he presented to the world was that of James Cagney, the movie star, not James Cagney, the father. Drums,